Okay, here's the packet lesson 6-2, but no way am I getting through them all. I'm just going to cover the ones that I expect you to be able to handle from your homework, and I'll tell you which ones I want you to do before this uh, video's over. So, square root of 75, is that a perfect square root? No. So we got to think about, okay, from our list, why don't I go ahead and just so everybody knows where I'm getting this information from, this is our main list. Now, to be honest with you, these will probably show up the most, okay? So as you see, 25 goes into 75, so we're going to take that out, write it first. That'll be a good habit. And then how many times does 25 go into 75? 3. This is our perfect square root, so that'll turn into a 5, and that's the square root of 3, and you're done. So these are pretty lickety-split, not a ton of work required. Now, we have choices, you guys, and I'm going to go ahead and show this to you 2 different ways. And you can pick whichever way you want, but I definitely have a way that I like better. But again, I've been around a while, but a lot of students would just go like this, and they'd go, they would just say, hey, this is water, and this is water, so I can mix it. And that's what I said on the pre-lesson. So why wouldn't you think this way? And then you'd go square root of 108. And now we'd go through our list. Does 4 go into 108? It actually does. Does 9? It actually does. Does 16? 6, 8, no. 25, no. 36 actually goes in there 3 times. So as you can see, I'm kind of laboring, but I did discover the largest one that goes into 108. It'd be 3 times. So it'd be 6 square root of 3. But as you can see, the bigger the number that's underneath your radican, the harder it is to break it down quickly, okay? So, learned a trick along the way, and here it is. It's built off of this rule. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3, okay? In other words, I'm going to try to create a pair of 2's, because I see I already have 1. And so now I'm going to take the square root of 54, I'm going to ignore this rule, and I'm going to actually introduce the square root of 27 and the square root of 2. You see, that's what 54 is. It's 27 times 2. Now I'm going to bring this one along, and I can see I got a pair of square root of 2's. What's the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? Well, that's just 2. So this turns into 2 square root of 27. You always put the whole number out in front. Now the square root of 27, I can go through my list and I see, aha, the square root of 9 goes into 27. So that's 2 square root of 9, square root of 3. What's the square root of 9? 3. So that's 2 times 3 times the square root of 3. And then what's 2 times 3? Well, that would be 6 square root of 3. So I get the same answer, completely different technique. This technique will help you with some of the monsters that are coming up. So don't totally disregard this method. Please don't. Okay, that's why I'm showing it to you. All right, go to example 3. Notice we have a fraction in there. Now, if this was just sitting out all by itself, hopefully your instinct would be, hey, wait a minute, I think I can reduce that. 3 goes into that 4 times. 3 goes into that 9 times. That's what 12/27 reduces to. See, I'm afraid a lot of students would go, aha, I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to multiply that by the square root of 27 and the square root of 27. By the way, you're not wrong. You're just making your life really difficult. Because look, if we just reduce it, like we've been told, to 4/9, and then we go, look at that. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. Game over. Okay? That easy. If you notice to reduce it. So make that a rule. Reduce the fraction first and then deal with it. Now let's go to this one. As you can see, we got water in the top. We got water in the bottom. So don't go square root of 3, square root of 3. It'll work. But this problem wants you to first reduce the fraction. All right, well, how many times does 3 go into 192? 3 goes into 192 64 times. You can check your calculator just to double check, but it does, 64 times. And look how easy your life just got. Square root of 64 is 8. So you got to be looking for these little tricks. Now compare this one to this one. You see 3 goes into 192 64 times. That's why we did it. This one, 3 does not go into 7, so you're stuck. You got to use your trick. And I need you to know that we don't care about radicals in the upstairs. We just care about the radicals in the basement. So what are we going to multiply the square root of 3 by to get rid of the square root down there? Itself. You guys have seen this before in Algebra 1 and probably a little bit in pre-algebra, but I'm not sure. But then we have to do the same thing on the top. How come? Because this fraction that we add to the problem has to equal 1. See, we're going to change the way this looks, but we're not going to change what it equals. Anything times 1 is just itself. So here, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. The roots fly off. Square root of 7 times the square root of 3. We got water and water, so it mixes. And then there's going to be a temptation for students to want to reduce this. That's why I talk about the oil and water. But this is oil, and this is water, and they don't mix. So you cannot make that the square root of 7. It doesn't work. You're done right here, okay? Now, example 6. Look at this. We got some water, and we got some water. So in other words, can this mix with this? Yes. In other words, I'm going to look at this as the square root, watch this, 8 over 1 times 2/3. Now each problem has its own level of difficulty, but this one you're going to have to remember how to multiply fractions. You try to cross reduce, you can't, so you multiply straight across. So you get the square root of 16 over 3. Now look at this. What's the square root of 16? That's just 4. So this turns into 4 over the square root of 3. Now we have a brand new math problem. Why is this still not done? Because this would be bad parenting. You're leaving radicals in your basement. So we got to get that out of there. Square root of 3, square root of 3. So we get 4 square root of 3 all over 3. Now one thing I hit hard is check your oil, check your oil, check your oil. That doesn't reduce. And you don't want to make it 1 1/3. That's just making it messy. So your answer is just 4 square root of 3 all over 3. Which I could have just circled that, but whatever. All right. I haven't taught you this yet. I haven't taught you that yet. So we'll deal with that later. But what you guys are ready for is example 11 and 12. Okay, so I'm going to hit these, and this will be the last ones for this particular lesson. Now, again, I'm looking at this stuff. That stuff needs to jump out at you, because if there was a fraction on a math problem and it was 6 over 24, your brain should be trained by now to go, wait a minute, I can reduce that to 1/4. And see, but if there's a square root and a square root, you guys aren't used to seeing this. So you're going to try all these crazy things with it, but I'm begging you to look to reduce it. It'll just turn into the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. It's the same thing, it's just you got to bring the square roots along. So this turns into 3, and then we reduce 6/24 to the square root of 1 over the square root of 4, because that's what that reduces to, 1/4, okay? And then we look at them individually. Well, square root of 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Square root of 4 is 2. So you're done. Is that the only way to do the problem? No. And that's what gets interesting about this stuff. Some other student might go like this. They might say, hey, the square root of 24 is the square root of, whoops, sorry, that's a 6, not a 3. I got to make sure that's there. So square root of 24, student goes, hey, I'm going to make that the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. And then these would cancel. And then what's the square root of 4? 2. So I can't tell you how to do every single problem, because some people like to reduce the fractions and deal with it. Some other students might like this way. So I call it fun because there's multiple ways to do these problems, but there's definitely an easier route sometimes. Now this one is just do what it says, square this stuff. So it's 3 square root of 3 times 3 square root of 3. That's what it means to square something. All right? Now, here's our oil. So 3 times 3 is 9. Then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, what did I say? That's the same thing as the square root of 3 squared. When you square a square root, the roots fly off. So that's just times 3, which would be 27. All right. Now, just so you know, I'm definitely not assigning every single problem. Here are the problems that you're ready to do. I'm going to circle them. So you guys can give these a shot because you should be pretty prepared for them. 12 and 13. And that's it, okay? Tomorrow, or for tomorrow's lesson, we'll tackle these cubic roots. All right, that's it. Good luck. Don't forget to check your answers on Schoology. Do a few, check a few. Do a few, check a few. We'll see you soon.